Nancy Hernandez and the Black Widows. A short time later, Wolfface and Miss Buckwald sat at a table across from Detective Milk and Officer Mann in the dean's office.
Look, I told you dudes 12 times already. We found Nancy's necklace laying on the ground.
So, you're just an innocent bus driver trying to make an honest living, huh?
Detective Milk slid a file across the table. Wolfface opened it. It contained a criminal record for Wolfface.
I pulled your priors, Wolfman. Turns out you're a convicted felon. Grand theft auto.
Wolfface shrugged.
I jacked a car when I was 16. I learned my lesson. I've had a clean record ever since.
Uh-huh. You want to explain this then?
Detective Milk spun his laptop computer around. On screen was a website. It belonged to Wolfface. It featured ghost stories and cool merch. Wolfy t-shirts and mugs.
That's my side hustle. Kids love it.
Yeah. On your blog, you claim the school is cursed.
It's just an opinion.
You really think this creepy shit is appropriate for kids?
Want to know what I really think, bro? I think you're sweating me because what went down back in the day.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Sure you do. Milky Way.
A look of shame and bitter anger suddenly swept across Milk's face.
Don't call me that.
Ah, I see it still burns.
What's he talking about, Detective?
Me and him got history. We went to school together. I was kind of a jerk back then.
Detective Milk's mind flashed back to a painful memory from years ago. It took place in the quad at Sepulveda High. A 15-year-old Detective Milk was being teased by a group of tough students. One of them was Wolfface. He was wearing a t-shirt for his favorite band, Motorhead.
What's up, Milky Way? Where are you going, Holmes?
Nowhere.
Young Milk shrugged and tried to slip by him, but Wolfface grabbed his backpack and started going through it.
Not so fast. Let me see what you got in here. Oh my god.
Wolfface pulled a pack of multi-sided dice out of Milk's backpack.
Dice? Dude plays Dungeons and Dragons.
Give them back.
Wolfface ignored his protest. He reached back in the backpack and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a bio for Milk's D&D character.
Dude's an elf, and he calls himself Milkantos the Fair.
You're such a loser, Milky Way.
Milky Way, Milky Way.
Milk ran away with tears in his eyes. Back in the dean's office, Wolfface shook his head.
Milky Way.
Nobody calls me that anymore.
Sorry about that, bro. I love D&D too. I was just too embarrassed to admit it.
My character was the warrior princess, Volterra.
Dude, you should join our party. We roll bones at my crib every Friday night. You're welcome too, Milk.
I don't play kiddie games anymore, and I don't like this one.
Just then, Officer Mann got a text.
Detective, I just got a text from Esmeralda's mother. She's safe at home.
Oh, thank goodness.
See, I told you, bro.
Wolfface and Buckwald stood up.
Now, if you don't mind, we have places to be and things to do.
This isn't over, Wolfman. Not by a long shot.
Keep trying, Milk, but the only thing I'm guilty of is being a cool motherfucker.
Wolfface winked at him as he and Buckwald headed out of the room. Wolfface and Buckwald walked out of the dean's office and headed towards the parking lot.
I didn't want to say nothing to the popo, but I feel something down in the boiler room. It wasn't Nancy, it was darker. Evil. Something happened down there. I'm not sure what, but I don't think Nancy's here anymore.
Maybe she finally went to heaven.
Wolfface looked at Buckwald and shook his head. He turned and walked away.
Where are you going?
I have some thinking to do.
At that moment across town, Clemente was pacing back and forth in his room. He had his bandmates on his speakerphone.
What do you mean our track's gone?
I mean, it's gone. Listen.
Clemente hit a button on his phone. The band's song played, but Nancy's voice wasn't in the background anymore.
Yeah, I can't hear it on my copy either.
What the fuck? This is so weird. You think it's possible we're having a collective hallucination?
I know what I heard. It wasn't my imagination.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe we did. But I think we have to accept the fact that she's gone now. There's nothing more we can do for Nancy, except pray.
Deep in his heart, Clemente knew the truth. He'd been feeling it all day. Nancy was gone. He laid slowly down in his bed. His tears welled up in his eyes. Sepulveda High, the next day. It was Halloween. The campus was decorated with ghosts and goblins and other spooky stuff. Clemente and his bandmates were hanging flyers all over campus for the Halloween dance that evening. Meanwhile, in the boiler room, Wolfface was walking around the dank space, examining things. He came upon the black spot where Nancy's soul had melted away into the floor. He bent down and sniffed it. He made a face and reached into a bag, removing a white candle and some incense. He lit them both. Then he took out a Buddhist meditation bell and chimed it.
Nancy, the lost one, I bring you forth from the darkness and hold you up to the light. Let not your past control your present.
Wolfface whispered some strange words, then crossed himself. He blew out the incense and the candle and left. But after he was gone, a small crack suddenly appeared on the black spot in the floor. A short time later, Miss Buckwald was in her class working with her students. The widows were sitting in the back of the room, ignoring her, listening to music. Tattletale, however, kept glancing over at Miss Buckwald. She looked nervous. Quietly, Tattletale took out a pencil and started writing a note. Just then the bell rang. Everyone gathered their things.
Bye, everyone. I'll see you all at the dance tonight.
Tattletale and the other widows sauntered out. Miss Buckwald closed the door and went over to her desk. She was reaching for her things, but suddenly she spotted a note sitting on her desk. She opened it up and read it. Her eyes went wide. A short time later in the dean's office, Dean Shantelle and Officer Mann read Buckwald's note. It said, Esmeralda Hernandez is in danger.
I think Tattletale left it. I recognize her handwriting.
Figures.
What should we do?
Nothing. It's just a prank.
How can you be so sure?
Her nickname is Tattletale. They call her that because she starts drama by telling lies.
But what if she's telling the truth for once?
Dean Shantelle shook her head.
Ha! That'll be the day.
She crumbled up the note and threw it in the wastebasket. Miss Buckwald looked over at Officer Mann. They shared a look of concern. A short time later, Esmeralda was sitting by herself in a hallway, drawing in her sketchbook. She looked very intense. She was scribbling faster and faster until her pencil snapped. She looked at her sketch. The entire page was black, except for a tiny figure in the corner, hunched over and crying. Just then, Esmeralda heard someone coming towards her. Esmeralda quickly covered up her sketch and looked up. Officer Mann was standing over her.
I just came by to return this.
Officer Mann handed Esmeralda Nancy's cross. A look of relief and deep pain washed across Esmeralda's face.
Thanks.
So, are you, going to the Halloween dance tonight?
Esmeralda shook her head.
Good. You've been through a lot lately. Stay home and get some rest. School dances suck anyway.
Officer Mann paused and leaned in close.
Just remember, if you ever need help, I got your back, kid.
Esmeralda said nothing. Officer Mann nodded and walked away. As night descended on the Sepulveda High campus, a huge crowd of students dressed in costumes arrived for the Halloween dance. Buckwald and other teachers were there as chaperones, dressed up in costumes as well. At the entrance to the gym, Officer Mann gave students the once-over before letting them inside. Wolfface walked up, dressed as, you guessed it, the Wolfman. He walked past Mann without saying hello or looking at her. As soon as he went inside, she got on her walkie-talkie.
Bald Eagle, this is Mama Bear. Over.
We went over this. We don't need to use code names. Over.
Detective Milk was patrolling the perimeter of the campus.
Sorry, forgot. Wolfy just went into the gym. Over.
Put eyes on him. Don't let that scumbag out of your sight. Over and out.
Mann put her walkie-talkie away. Just then, the Black Widow sauntered up to the entrance. Shorty was dressed up like a vampire queen. Officer Mann stepped in their way.
Not so fast, ladies. I need to do a weapons check first.
Oh my god.
Officer Mann waved her metal detector over each Black Widow. Nothing happened until she got to Poyita. The alarm sounded. Officer Mann zeroed in on the source and arrived at Poyita's forehead. She gave Poyita a puzzled look.
I cracked my skull, bashing my head against a wall in daycare. I've got a steel plate in my noggin now.
Poyita tapped her forehead. Officer Mann stared at her, at a loss for words. She turned to the other widows and gave them a cold, hard stare.
If I catch any of you start some shit, you're toast.
Shorty smiled, showing off her fangs.
Here's the thought, darling.
The widows laughed and walked inside. The widows entered the packed gymnasium. A student band was on stage playing. Shorty turned to Tattletale.
Keep an eye out for that little shit, Esmeralda.
I thought we weren't doing that till Monday.
If the opportunity's there, why not, eh?
Face tapped Shorty on the shoulder and pointed across the room. Clemente and his band, Waco Mundo, were entering. They were dressed up as skeletons.
Your boy be looking fine tonight, girl.
Shorty fanned herself dramatically.
Oh, be still, my cold dead heart.
Then she made her way across the room and intercepted Clemente. He smiled when he saw her. Shorty smiled back, showing off her fangs.
Whoa, Shorty, you look amazing.
You like? I did it all myself. You look good too, skeleton boy.
Thanks.
Shorty reached into her dress and pulled out a bottle of tequila.
What you say? Halloween toast.
Sorry, I never drink before a show. But save me some, we'll hang after our set.
Knock 'em dead, baby.
Shorty planted a kiss on Clemente's cheek. He smiled warmly and walked away, following his bandmates to a door that led behind the stage.
Fuck!
Face walked up and gave Shorty a supportive hug.
Don't worry. After we give him some potion, he'll be your slave.
Shorty smiled and took a swig of tequila. Meanwhile, at that moment across town, inside Esmeralda's bedroom, sketches of dark, disturbing images were strewn about everywhere. A framed picture of Nancy sat atop Esmeralda's dresser with a lit candle by it. Esmeralda sat nearby, looking out her open bedroom window. In the distance, she could see Sepulveda High. Esmeralda got up and went over to Nancy's picture.
You always told me to stand up for myself. But I'm not like you. I'm a coward. Besides, where did fighting back ever get you? I hate myself.
Esmeralda turned away from Nancy's picture. She stared down at the pictures that were cluttering the room. Suddenly, Esmeralda picked up one of the drawings and started ripping it to pieces.
Ah!
She started tearing up all the drawings. She finally stopped. She stood there, surrounded by shredded paper, panting. She looked at the picture of Nancy again, but this time her eyes were filled with rage and determination. Esmeralda went into Nancy's room. She reached under Nancy's bed and took out a shoebox. It was a special box Nancy kept in case of emergencies. Esmeralda opened it up and took out a few items. She turned and opened up Nancy's closet and pulled out her hall monitor vest. Back in the gym, Dean Shantelle stepped onto the stage. Students gave her a warm greeting.
Keep it up. Just remember who's signing your report cards. Anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured entertainment. Students, please give it up for Hugo Mundo.
The curtain behind Dean Shantelle parted to reveal the band. They were standing with their heads down, their skeletal limbs hanging limply like they were dead. Hector hit a gong next to his drum kit.
Children of the night, hear my call. Arise, my dead compadres. Arise, I say.
Slowly, Clemente and his bandmates twitched and jerked like they were coming alive. In the crowd, Wolfface turned to Miss Buckwald.
That's my kind of shit.
I love it.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
At the cue, Clemente and his band suddenly came alive. They jumped into a lively, infectious ska song. The entire gym started dancing. Wolfface gave Buckwald a look. Wanna dance?
Fuck yeah.
Wolfface grabbed Buckwald's hand, and they jumped in and joined the dancing crowd. Across campus, Detective Milk shined his flashlight around, looking for anything suspicious. Distantly, he could hear the music coming from the gym. He shook his head in disgust. At that moment, way down deep in the boiler room, the music could faintly be heard coming through the walls. On the black spot on the floor, another small crack started to form. As Clemente's band wrapped up their song, Wolfface and Buckwald stepped off the dance floor.
That was awesome. I didn't know you had moves like that.
Neither did I. I gotta hit the head. I'll be right back.
Wolfface headed off to the bathroom. Buckwald started listening to the next song, but suddenly she did a double take. A girl standing near her, with her back turned, was wearing a student leadership vest. She looked just like...
Nancy?
The girl turned around. It was Esmeralda.
Hey, Miss B.
Oh, hi, Esmeralda.
You like my Halloween costume? I'm Nancy. Get it?
Esmeralda, that's very sweet and touching. I'm sure your sister would be honored by your tribute to her. The thing is...
Miss Buckwald leaned in close.
I'm not sure this is the best place for you to be tonight.
You're wrong, Miss B. This is exactly where I need to be. I have some scores to settle.
Esmeralda turned and walked away. Miss Buckwald tried to follow her, but just then a crowd of kids passed between them. Buckwald lost sight of her. At that moment, the Black Widows were getting drinks at the concession stand. Dulce turned and spotted Esmeralda walking by.
Holy shit! Shorty, look!
Shorty turned and saw Esmeralda heading out a side door.
Fuck! Come on!
The widows followed Esmeralda outside. She walked through the lunch area. Suddenly Esmeralda heard footsteps and stopped. She turned around, but the widows hid in the shadows. Esmeralda pretended she didn't see them. Just then the student exited the back of the cafeteria, carrying a box of snacks. Esmeralda ran over to the door and caught it before it closed. She headed inside. Shorty grinned and turned to the other widows.
Perfect. Vámonos.
Back in the gym, Clemente stepped forward to the microphone. He looked emotional, like he had something important to say.
Thank you. If I could have your attention, we'd like to say a few words about a very dear friend who passed away recently. Nancy was an amazing person. She was smart, talented, funny, but most of all, she had a heart of gold. In honor of her memory, we ask you to join us in observing a moment of silence.
The audience joined him, respectfully bowing their heads in silence. Clemente looked up at the ceiling.
Nancy, wherever you are, know that you will always live in our hearts forever. This is a song I wrote in remembrance of Nancy.
At that moment down in the boiler room, as Clemente's heartfelt song continued, more cracks started to form on the black spot on the floor. Back in the gym, Miss Buckwald scanned the crowd. She spotted Wolfface and ran over to him. She whispered in his ear, telling him about Esmeralda. Wolfy looked very concerned.
Let's find her.
They headed out the side door. Officer Mann saw them go and rushed out behind them. Nearby, the widows entered the cafeteria. They looked around, but there was no sign of Esmeralda.
Spread out. Find her.
The widows split up and started searching. Dulce called out.
Little mouse, come out wherever you are.
Just then, Dulce heard a small cough coming from a nearby food pantry. She smiled. Dulce crept up to the pantry and threw the door open. Esmeralda was standing there.
Gotcha!
But Esmeralda suddenly whipped out a metal spray can. It was a bottle of mace.
This is for my sister, bitch.
Esmeralda sprayed Dulce in the eyes. Dulce stumbled backwards, clutching her face. Esmeralda whipped out a hammer from behind her back and whacked Dulce in the knee. Dulce screamed and fell on the ground. Puita spotted Esmeralda and charged her, but Esmeralda spun around and whacked her in the head. A loud metallic clang rang out. Puita staggered momentarily. Just then, Shorty pounced on Esmeralda from behind. The other widows ran up and pinned Esmeralda to the floor. Puita walked over, rubbing her forehead.
Yo, lucky I got this metal plate, or I'd be picking my brains off the floor.
Puita touched her forehead and made a face.
Do I have a dent?
Kinda, yeah.
Sweet.
Shorty turned to Esmeralda.
Gotta admit, you surprised me, kid. I thought you were a weak-ass nerd. But check you out. You're a fucking psycho.
Esmeralda lunged at Shorty, but the widows held her back.
Ah, too bad you gotta die. You might have made a good widow.
Shorty punched Esmeralda in the gut, knocking the wind out of her. She took out the strange amulet that Tia Linda had given her and put it around Esmeralda's neck.
Bring her punk ass over here. Ándale pues.
The widows dragged Esmeralda over to the large trash compacting machine. Shorty opened it. Esmeralda's eyes went wide. Shorty turned to Tattletale.
Don't just stand there, fool. Get your shit ready.
Tattletale reluctantly reached into a bag and took out a glass jar. Suddenly, Esmeralda looked at them defiantly.
You bitches really are cowards. I don't care if you kill me. I'd rather die on my feet like Nancy than bow down to losers like you.
Shorty slapped her. She went over to the trash compactor controls.
When I tell you to, shove her in. Wait! I want to push the button. Please? Be my guest.
Shorty switched places with Puita. The widow started shoving Esmeralda towards the open mouth of the trash compactor. Esmeralda tried to fight back, but they were too strong. Meanwhile, in the lunch area, Wolfface and Buckwald looked around for Esmeralda. They saw that the cafeteria door was slightly ajar, and they ran towards it. But suddenly, Detective Milk stepped out of the shadows. Officer Mann was behind him.
Stop right there.
Meanwhile, back in the gym, Clemente finished up his song to a round of applause. He wiped a tear away and blew a kiss up to heaven.
We love you, Nancy!
At that moment, down in the basement, something was happening. Cracks shot across the black spot on the floor. A red glow started to shine through the cracks. Who knows if it was Clemente's song, or the peril her sister was in. But something was breaking Tia Linda's spell and drawing Nancy forth. The cracks on the floor suddenly gave way and exploded out. The gaping hole appeared again on the floor. Flames licked out of it. But then suddenly, a black moth fluttered out of the hole. It hovered in the air for a moment, then disappeared in a wisp of black smoke. At that moment, in the cafeteria, the widows almost had Esmeralda shoved into the trash compactor. Rita giggled as her finger hovered over the button. In a second or two, it would all be over. Then, suddenly, something unseen hit Shorty face and Dulce. They tumbled across the floor. Esmeralda fell to the ground.
What the fuck?
The lights flickered. In the strobing light, everyone saw Nancy. She looked like a mix of her dark and Day of the Dead forms, but her eyes burned red with fury.
Nancy! Oh my god!
Nancy let out a terrible ear-splitting screech, and then disappeared. Suddenly, Poyita was lifted up into the air and hurled into the trash compactor. The door closed, and the compactor started crushing down on her.
Help me!
Face grabbed her hand and tried to pull her out, but the compactor crushed down on her. Blood poured out of the bottom of the trash compactor.
Oh my god!
Run!
The widow scrambled for the door. At that moment, outside the cafeteria, Detective Milk was reaching for the doorknob, and suddenly the door flew open and bashed him in the head. Milk fell on the ground in front of Officer Mann. The widows burst out the door and took off running. Buckwald and Wolfy watched them go. Then they turned back to the cafeteria, wondering what the hell was going on. Meanwhile, back in the cafeteria, Esmeralda ripped Theolinda's strange amulet off her neck and threw it on the ground. Nancy's ghost drifted over to it. She picked it up and looked at it, sensing something about it. Then she crushed it in her hand, turning it to dust. Nancy drifted over to Esmeralda. They looked at each other as emotions washed over their faces.
Nancy! Esme!
Esmeralda reached out. Their hands touched. Esmeralda shuddered as a cold tingle went through her body. She pulled her hand back. Nancy gave her a sad look and a loving half-smile. Then she vanished. Meanwhile, outside, Detective Milk lay on the ground, delirious. Officer Mann was cradling his head as she waved a walkie-talkie at Wolfface and Buckwald.
You two don't move. Milk, are you all right? Speak to me.
Officer Mann looked up. Her jaw dropped as Nancy suddenly appeared and drifted past her.
Nancy.
Holy shit.
She watched in astonishment as the ghost glanced at her, then vanished.
She's going after the widows.
We have to stop her.
Officer Mann started to get up, but Wolfface shook his head.
This is her battle. Let her finish it. Esmeralda's in there, and she needs us. Your partner's down, and he needs you. Let's focus on the living.
Officer Mann thought about it for a moment, then gestured towards the door. Buckwald and Wolfface rushed inside the cafeteria as Officer Mann attended to Detective Milk. Meanwhile, across campus, Dulce ran along an empty corridor in a mad panic. She looked over her shoulder and caught a glimpse of a dark, shadowy figure racing up behind her. Dulce let out a yelp and tried to run faster, but she tripped over her own feet and fell to the ground, right in front of a row of large vending machines. Suddenly, one of the vending machines rocked backwards, then fell forward, landing on top of Dulce. Inside the vending machine, Dulce was crushed. She'd been impaled by multiple metal rods that held the candy products in place. She took her last breath, covered with bloody chocolate bars and Skittles, then died. Nearby, Face ran down another hallway. She stopped in front of the wood shop and jimmied the door open. She dashed inside and slammed the door behind herself. She ran over to a tool rack and grabbed a hammer and an awl to defend herself with. Suddenly, she heard a whispery voice.
Why do you do me like that?
Fuck you, you ugly-ass trick. Bring it on.
Grace swung her weapons around in the air, hoping to strike Nancy, but she didn't connect with anything. Behind her, unseen, Nancy suddenly appeared. Suddenly she grabbed Face and threw her into a wall. Face looked up and saw Nancy's ghost. She was standing above her with a foot planted on her chest. Nancy reached down with her hand and dug her nails into the sides of Face's face, and then she yanked backwards, pulling Face's entire face off. Then, Nancy picked up a small vanity mirror that had fallen out of Face's pocket. She held it up so Face could see her own reflection. Face stared at the hideous, skinless face staring back at her, and then slumped over and died. Nancy tossed her face aside and disappeared. At that moment, across campus in the greenhouse, Shorty and Tattletale were hiding behind some dead plants.
Where's Face and Dulce? Maybe we should go look for them.
Shorty gestured for Tattletale to be quiet. Shh! Suddenly, they heard a noise. Tattletale started to pray.
Dear God, please, I love you. Please, God, please, don't let us die. Please, God.
The door to the greenhouse swung slowly open. Suddenly, a basketball bounced into the greenhouse and rolled towards them.
What the fuck? It's just a stupid basket.
Before Shorty could finish her words, the basketball suddenly flew off the ground and smacked her in the face. Shorty recovered quickly and rubbed her jaw. She called out defiantly to Nancy's ghost.
My drunk-ass stepdad used to hit a lot harder than that. Is that all you got, bitch?
Suddenly, objects started flying at Shorty from all over the greenhouse. Shorty dodged and grabbed the discarded metal trash can lid and used it as a shield.
Ha! That's so weak! Give up. You can't touch this.
As the battle went on, Tattletale saw an escape route. Outside the greenhouse was a workman's ladder leaning up against the side of the building. Tattletale made a break for it. Shorty saw Tattletale running out. She turned and made a break for it too. As Shorty burst out the greenhouse, Tattletale called out to her.
Shorty! Up here, hurry!
Shorty looked up and saw Tattletale was up on the roof, gesturing to the ladder. Shorty ran over to it and started climbing. When she got up on the roof, her and Tattletale ran along the rooftop till they got to the edge. They looked over. In front of them was the fence that surrounded the school. It was tall and covered with spikes, but just beyond it, a discarded old mattress was laying on the sidewalk. Shorty turned to Tattletale.
Come on, girl, we gotta jump for it. It's our only chance.
We won't make it, Shorty! It's too far!
Just then, a cold, icy wind blew over them. They heard footsteps moving across the rooftop. Nancy's ghost suddenly appeared in front of them, staring at them with glowing red eyes.
Shorty, it's payback time.
Shorty stared back at Nancy with a sneer on her face.
Whatever, you stupid dead hoe. You can't stop me, bitch. I'ma rule this hood, and there's nothing you can do about it. You'll never beat me. Never.
Shorty suddenly grabbed a loose piece of tile on the roof and hurled it at Nancy. It passed right through Nancy, but the distraction gave Shorty an opening. Shorty sprinted to the edge of the roof and jumped. Shorty flew in the air. For a moment, it looked like she would clear the fence and land on the mattress. But at the last moment, she came up short. Shorty landed on the spiked fence. She was impaled at the midsection.
Shorty, no!
Shorty lifted her head for a moment and mumbled out her last words.
Widows don't die. We multiply.
Then she died. Back on the roof, Tattletale fell to her knees.
Shorty!
A cold wind swirled around her. Nancy's ghost drifted over to her. Tattletale looked up at her.
Okay, you got me. I give up. Just kill me quick, alright?
Tattletale closed her eyes and prepared to die. The cold wind blew her hair up, but nothing happened.
Tattletale.
Yes?
Tell everyone what happened.
Tattletale opened her eyes and stared at Nancy. She couldn't believe she was being spared. Suddenly a rusty chain could be seen. It was wrapped around Nancy's pale, ghostly leg. The links of the chain suddenly snapped and fell away, evaporating into black smoke. Nancy's dark form fell away from her as well, like a dark shroud being lifted from her. She was transformed back into her Day of the Dead look. Nancy looked herself over in amazement.
You're free now.
Almost. There's still one more thing I still need to do, though.
Tattletale nodded. Nancy disappeared. At that moment, back by the cafeteria, Officer Mann helped a woozy Detective Milk to his feet.
What the hell happened?
You'd never believe me.
Just then, a student ran up in a panic.
Officer Mann, come quick. It's the widows. They're all dead.
What?
Milk and Mann stumbled off, following the student. Meanwhile, inside the cafeteria, Miss Buckwald and Wolfface searched for Esmeralda.
Esmeralda!
Wolfface rounded a corner and saw Poyita's arm laying on the ground next to the blood-soaked trash compactor. He winced.
Ugh.
Nearby, Esmeralda suddenly stood up.
Over here.
Wolfface rushed over to her. Buckwald joined them.
Thank God we found you. Are you hurt?
Esmeralda shook her head.
Nancy saved me. Where is she?
Wolfface and Miss Buckwald looked at each other. Who knows? At that moment across town, Tia Linda was cooking up a concoction on her stove. The potion looked dark and lethal. Tia Linda dipped a spoon in to test it. The spoon sizzled, and part of it dissolved. Tia Linda laughed.
Perfecto.
Then, suddenly, she sensed something. A sour look crossed her wrinkled face. She turned around and saw Nancy's ghost standing in her kitchen, staring at her.
Oh, you shouldn't have come here, vagabunda. After I'm done with you, you'll wish you stayed in hell.
You're the one who belongs in hell, you old hag.
You little shit. Who do you think you're dealing with? I'm not some two-bit fortune teller. I'm Tia Linda, la gran bruja de Oaxaca.
Tia Linda threw her shoulders back. She seemed to grow larger, more intimidating. The lights in the room flickered. The floor trembled. Nancy retreated a step. Then she looked over at the stove. She stared at the bubbling pot. Nancy's eyes glowed red, and the flames underneath the pot suddenly shot up. Tia Linda was caught off guard. She whipped her head around and stared in horror at her concoction as the flames engulfed it.
What are you doing?
But before Tia Linda could do anything, the pot beside her suddenly exploded. The acidy potion splashed onto Tia Linda's face and torso.
No!
She fell to her knees as half her face melted away, leaving nothing but a steaming skull. Nancy floated out of the kitchen. In the hallway, She drifted over to a rug on the floor. She looked down and waved her hand. The rug slid aside to reveal a trapdoor. Nancy waved her hand again and the trapdoor opened. Nancy floated down the stairs into the secret room. It was a storage room of sorts, filled with Tia Linda's most prized possessions. Nancy stopped in front of a cabinet. Its many shelves were filled with glass jars. Each one had a fluttering black moth in it. They were souls that Tia Linda had collected over the years. Nancy gathered her strength, then let out an ear-piercing cry. The glass jars shattered. The black moths fluttered around Nancy. A shimmering white light suddenly shined down from above on all of them. The light changed the color of the moths. Their darkness dripped off them like dirty water as they changed into golden butterflies. As Nancy stood in the light, a deep warmth washed over her. Her Dia de los Muertos makeup faded, revealing her true, beautiful face. She watched the golden butterflies flutter upward into the light and disappear. Nancy closed her eyes and smiled as the golden light enveloped her. She too began to shimmer away and dissipate. She whispered,
Esme.
Back at Sepulveda High, Esmeralda was standing outside the cafeteria with Wolfface and Buckwald. Suddenly, she could hear Nancy's voice in her head.
Esme? Nancy, where are you? Come back to me.
I can't, Esme. But I'll always be watching over you. I love you.
Back in Tia Linda's hidden room, Nancy faded away and disappeared into the shimmering light. Esmeralda could feel Nancy's soul leaving. Her eyes welled up with tears. She squeezed her cross tightly. Wolfface sighed and hung his head. Miss Buckwald consoled Esmeralda as the bittersweet tears continued to flow from her eyes. It was several months later. The winter had come and gone. Students and faculty were going about their daily business at Sepulveda High, but there was a different vibe on campus these days. Everyone seemed happier, as if a storm had passed. Workers were repairing the greenhouse and making other long overdue repairs as Dean Shantelle supervised. She was on the phone with Detective Milk.
No. You may not come by for another informal visit, Detective.
Please, I just want to poke around a little.
You already investigated and didn't find jack shit. Time to move on, Milky Way.
Wait.
Dean Shantelle hung up. Nearby, Officer Mann was patrolling the girls' locker room. As she walked past the rows of empty lockers, suddenly she heard a creaking sound behind her. She spun around, but was relieved to see it was just a student opening up her locker. Officer Mann smiled at the student and sighed. She walked away, shaking her head. Near the buses, Miss Buckwald was making out with Wolfface. After finishing their passionate kiss, she gently rubbed his cheek.
I have to go back to class.
Yo, I'll see you after work, Princess Volterra.
It's a date.
In a nearby classroom, Tattletale was busy working on an assignment. Just then, she noticed a tag on a nearby desk. It said, Widows for Life. Tattletale couldn't help herself. A tear welled up in her eye. In the music building, Clemente and his band were getting ready to rehearse. Clemente paused for a moment, lost in thought, as he looked at an empty chair where Nancy used to sit and listen to them. Marisol walked up behind him and patted him on the shoulder.
Yo, you ready to jam, dog?
Yeah, let's do it.
No puedo olvidarte o sacar
Nearby, Esmeralda walked through campus, carrying a duffel bag and her sketchbook. She looked different now. She was wearing cool clothes with some bling, and had stylish frames for her glasses. She carried herself with confidence and a bit of tood. As she walked along, other students gave her respect. Esmeralda arrived at the back of the science building and set her bag down. She opened up her duffel bag and took out several spray paint cans. She approached a huge mural that she had been working on. It was a huge illustration of Nancy as a badass avenging angel watching over the school. The end. Stay tuned for more tales of terror and suspense on Midnight Caller.